Please welcome Angela Constance. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Elaine. I know you have said that today is more about reflections as opposed to rhetoric, and that can be quite hard for politicians. But I'll do my best, but I'm not going to make any promises I can't keep. So, good morning, friends, and a very happy new year to each and every one of you. It's always timely at the start of a new year to take a deep breath, take stock, look to the future, and today is our opportunity to consider a new debate for a new Scotland. And we must not assume that people's views, whether they were yes or whether they were no, are the same as they were 2 years ago. Instead, the independence movement, our movement, it must engage with a fresh perspective and an open mind. And I have believed in independence since I was a child, in part because independence seemed to me to be a normal state of affairs for any country, but also because Thatcher's Britain was crushing both my family and my community. But even in my teenage years, as I set out on my journey as an activist for independence, as a member of the SNP, I had some sense, I had some instinct that it would take a wider movement to win the hearts and minds required for Scotland to become independent. But it was not until we approached 2014 that we saw the emergence of a real and lasting movement for independence. It looked, it sounded, and it felt different. It was an entirely new experience for all of us. Ultimately, we fell short, although not as short as many folk expected. And we've all had some time to think about that and to learn from that. And sharing the resulting wisdom is what today is about. Movements need to have breadth, depth, and diversity if they are to become truly national movements, if they are to become winning movements. And we can look at the peak from different sides of the mountain. We know there is not a single route or a shortcut to the summit, and some paths will be longer or steeper than others. So sometimes it's difficult to know what the best path to take is. Public opinion and events drive, influence, and inform campaigns, and we cannot and must not exist in a political bubble if we are to connect with people and their communities. But at the same time, nothing, absolutely nothing, should stop us from building the new campaign for a new Scotland together and to make the case for independence at each and every opportunity. Movements, they need to be supported, they need to be nurtured. The demands of campaigning can be arduous as well as joyous. It's easy to enjoy the highs together, but let us ensure that we care for and support each other throughout our journey. And to be frank, diversity means there will be differences of opinion. But that is our strength. With diversity comes checks and balances, and it encourages truth to be spoken to power. And we must recognise that the Scotland we seek to build has many interests and many needs, all of which have to be woven into the fabric of our new nation. Facts are important, but we need to recognise this is also about how folk feel, and we must give them the confidence about change. There are few absolutes in life, and we must learn to embrace the uncertainty of change as an opportunity. The breadth, depth, and diversity of our movement will not only be needed to win independence, but it will also be needed to build the new Scotland that we seek. And we will need to explain how that new Scotland can be built and the choices that lie ahead. I know the challenges and complexities, as well as the opportunities and the excitement in building from the ground up Scotland's first social security system with the transfer of 11 benefits and 15% of UK welfare spend from Westminster to Scotland. This is the biggest programme of change in the history of devolution, and it's a unique insight into the task of nation building. The role of government, the role of political parties, and the role of the broader movement will at times be quite distinct. The day-to-day job, the conversations, the challenges, the decisions, the opportunities are all different. And we shouldn't expect to be doing and saying the same things all the time. So the task before us is how to build synergies and develop a strategy to enable us all to make a cogent and compelling case for independence. And in doing so, we will be celebrating both our diversity and what binds us together in common cause. The democratic deficit has always existed in this union, is now staring us all in the face. Whatever your position on the European Union, the fact that 62% of Scots voted to remain but now face the prospect of a red, white and blue Brexit is nothing short of an outrage. What does that really say about our place and our future in the UK? In 2014, we were told we were an equal partner. Aye, well, the moment has come for the UK government to prove it. 71 years ago this week, the first General Assembly of the United Nations met, not in Geneva, not in New York, but at the Westminster Central Hall. Post-war, Britain recognised its duty to promote human rights and closer international cooperation. It played a leading role in the development of what has become the world's most successful and influential human rights treaty, the European Convention on Human Rights, the ECHR. The Britain of today is far removed from that history. Its government wants instead to rip up and disown that shared heritage, our heritage. It not only wants to scrap the Human Rights Act, but appears intent on removing us from the ECHR too. And despite their rhetoric, when we consider their use of EU citizens resident in the UK as bargaining chips in the Brexit negotiations, when we consider that the United Nations have condemned them for their systemic and grave violations of the rights of disabled people, we must conclude, and we must be in no doubt, that our human rights are at risk. Human rights, as we know, have been successfully deployed time and time again by ordinary people in challenging the vested interests of public authorities and the state. This is not a comfortable position for governments, but it is essential for well-functioning democracies. And I believe that our collective commitment to human rights safeguards and our vision for a fairer Scotland is perhaps the most powerful ideal binding together our diverse movement for independence. And we seek independence to redress a democratic deficit and also to seek justice for those that are disadvantaged and discriminated against. And while some say all politics is local, global concerns are also Scotland's concerns. I want independence for the difference it will make both at home and abroad. I see Scotland as a country which locates itself not where geography has placed us on the periphery of a continent, but at the very heart of a progressive vision of nations in Europe and beyond. And if it's a choice between an inward insular Tory Britain or a progressive internationalist Scotland, I know exactly where I stand. And because if the seismic events of 2016 have communicated any message, it is surely that the ideals which unite progressive nations must always be greater than the issues that divide us. And only independence will deliver Scotland that opportunity. So friends, let us empower our diverse movement to reach into every community, to spread the message that human rights are the tools for people to challenge and change our country and to change their lives for the better. Human rights are the foundation stones of a fairer, independent Scotland. So let's start building that new nation on them. Friends, thank you very much for the opportunity to join you all here today. It's an enormous privilege to share with you my own reflections. It's always been an enormous privilege and something that I have prized dearly to be a member of this broad and deep movement. And it gives me great pleasure now to introduce the next speaker, the wonderful Maggie Chapman, the co-convener of the Green Party and rector of Aberdeen University. Let's give Maggie a warm welcome.
Thank you very much for that, Angela. Good morning, friends. Thank you all so very much for coming along here today. I am really looking forward to our discussions and debates, and I know that we are all keen that today kickstarts the kind of campaign we know we need to win the kind of country we want to see. We do indeed need to build for independence. Every day, all around us, we see the consequences of the broken British state crushing people's spirits and destroying their lives. We see the stirring up of racism and anti-immigrant feeling by people determined to blame those not born in the UK for the failings of the NHS or for the lack of jobs, when we know the real reasons are much more sinister. The British state has been completely captured by a neoliberal elite determined to run down public services in the interests of private profit. And as an immigrant myself, I would like to thank our First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, for stating so clearly that I and others from around the world who have chosen to make Scotland our home, us Scots by choice, are welcome. A couple of years before the independence referendum in 2014, social attitudes here in Scotland were very much like those of the rest of the UK. However, that has changed, and we changed it. We, together, were able to use the independence movement to start to create the kind of Scotland we want and deserve. And we see the evidence for this shift in the rapidly diverging attitudes between us and England, in our approaches to immigration, to welfare, and perhaps most clearly in the Brexit vote. Scotland didn't need to vote for the Leave campaign's lies. The hope for a better country and a better politics lies in a genuine movement, our movement, for change, not in the duplicitous claims of Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage. And it is a good thing that we have achieved and secured this shift. But it is only a start. It is only the beginning of our new future. The Scotland we deserve has a vibrant political culture where people feel that political decisions are made through a profoundly democratic process. It means we need not just the incredibly effective national campaigns run by Women for Independence against the proposed new women's jail, not just the brilliant campaigners from across Scotland who have helped to stop fracking, not just the achievements of the Living Rent campaign, but it means giving power to people to make as many decisions over their lives as they can and to support them in doing so. It means living in the early days of a better nation. We have the we have a democratically literate society, and it is now our job to create the democracy that that society deserves. That is why independence matters to me. It is about democracy. It really is about taking back control. We need the power to make the decisions about our economy. We say no to austerity, no to passing on cuts to the most vulnerable in our society, no to an economic system that destroys our climate. Instead, we say yes to an economy based on meeting human needs that harness technology and automation to increase human happiness. We must equip ourselves to make best use of our renewable resources, not destroy decent work, plunder our natural environment, or destroy our climate. We want a social security system for all and an economy that puts people and planet first. We need the power to take decisions over our foreign policy. We say no to illegal wars, no to more nuclear weapons. Rather, we say yes to a Scotland that leads the world on human rights. We already recognise and stand with people struggling against injustices elsewhere. But I'd like to see Scotland use its soft power to support just causes. I would love to see Scotland officially recognise the Palestinian state and support And I would also like to see Scotland support the development of a Kurdish state. In the same way that Oslo is the place people go to negotiate peace, Scotland should be where people come to negotiate on human rights and climate change. When the Scottish Parliament passed world-leading climate change legislation, it gave others the impetus to do something similar. So we already know we can achieve these changes that we want to see. Many of us have been working on them, and today will help develop these ideas further. One of the most exciting of these developments is the work being done around the citizens' income. But even with the new powers over welfare that we will have, it will be difficult to deliver the full benefits of a citizen's income because we do not yet have the full powers of an independent state. We must use the powers we have now, though, to demonstrate what powers we need and why. Every year, we have a fight about government expenditure and revenues in Scotland. Does the money spent here by government exceed the money received by government in Scotland? Yet, this debate takes place in the context of a UK government which facilitates avoidance of tax for people around the world. From the British Virgin Islands and Bermuda to Jersey and Guernsey, the country that leads the world in helping rich people to avoid paying tax is the country that Scotland is shackled to. And in an independent Scotland, we know that we can have a tax system that helps the rich to pay their fair share and a social security system for all. It is clear to me that without the full powers of an independent state, we cannot achieve the kind of societal change we want. We must have that democratic power over all aspects of our lives. But more than this, we, specifically us politicians, must then have the courage to hand that power away to people and communities across Scotland. Independence must not be about replacing the broken machinery of Westminster with similar structures in Holyrood. The Scotland I want to live in gives power to people, to communities, and supports and facilitates them to wield it effectively. So in our discussions today, let us remember that the policies and strategies we develop must provide the building blocks for that radically different Scotland. a Scotland where power is distributed across different levels of government and where people always come first. With the independence campaign in the run-up to September 2014, we gave people hope that this was possible. We showed that politics could be different. Importantly, we created a movement, this movement, our movement, that was able to shift the opinions of many Scots, a movement that saw record numbers of people turning out to meetings to discuss the political issues that affected their lives. This is a strong foundation for our work today, and it is something of which we should be proud. When I go to England, I see people envious of this, shaken that people's concern for the NHS and its funding crisis can so easily be subverted to deliver blow upon blow to immigrants. At a political economy workshop in Sheffield a few months ago, I was struck by the despondent and depressed mood that was being described in local communities. I think that if we succeed in our quest for a different Scotland, we can pave the way for communities in the rest of the UK, and indeed the rest of the world, to develop their own, better, radical future. So today is really important, not just for us, but for others with whom we share these islands, and for those beyond these islands' shores. We have the opportunity over the next months and years to bring people back together, remembering that our focus should not only be on electoral politics. We have to remember this. It is about politics in the everyday, not just Thursdays in May, that really, really matter. We need to repeat what we did against all the odds 2.5 years ago, to bring discussion of political issues into our daily lives. We need to build an understanding that a radical, popular democracy can deliver the change that is so badly needed through debate, discussion, and listening to others. These staples might seem somewhat old-fashioned or traditional, but we have to escape the empty and vacuous marketing politics that has stripped our society of its ambition and its creativity. For too long, politics has been reduced to marketing campaigns and slogans that assumed you couldn't change people's minds. We know that our ideas, our values, and our principles can change people's minds. And we know that in a relatively short space of time, we did change people's minds. We now need to do it again, with better ideas, more well-informed policies, more coherent approaches, and above all, an enthusiasm and belief in a better world. I look forward to joining you on this journey, to working hard with you today, tomorrow, and in the days, weeks, and months to come. Together, we can create the Scotland that we all know is not only possible, but so desperately needed. Thank you.